The other day, one of the leaders of the No campaign, using language, you know, intemperate language, calling somebody a bully, saying that somebody ran a brutal regime, saying that somebody's behaviour was appalling, saying that somebody was a hopeless leader who presided over nothing but chaos and crisis. And I thought, God, this is terrible. Then I realised that was Alistair Darling talking about Gordon Brown. Alistair Darling talking about Gordon Brown. And they're on the same side. Does that not show you just how desperate the No campaign has become? They are absolutely in tatters. Absolutely in tatters. Folks, we have to hear the night. Take a wee breath. Take a wee step back and think about this for a moment. We have got 3 weeks. 3 weeks to the biggest decision in our lives. We have got within our grasp the potential, and by the way, there's been 142 countries since the Second World War across the world who have declared their independence, most of them after civil wars against imperialist nations, most of them having to use stones and armour lights to get their freedom. We only have to pick up a wee lead pencil. A wee lead pencil is all we need to use to get our freedom. In 3 weeks' time, we are going to have the opportunity to declare Scotland a free and independent nation. And yet, think about this. We have got against us all of the might of the British establishment, one of the oldest imperialist nations in the world. History and centuries behind it, of squashing unrest, of dividing and conquering, of turning people against one another. They've used their millionaires and their billionaires. They've used their biased media to try and distort the debate. They've tried to throw all sorts of fear and scaremongering stories into people's eyes, trying to frighten pensioners, trying to frighten workers. It's been a damned disgrace what they've done in relation to this campaign. But here's the rub. Here's the thing that you've got to take on board here tonight. Despite all that they've done over this last 12 and 18 months, we're 3 weeks away from the decision, and it's neck and neck, brothers and sisters. It's neck and neck. Despite everything they've thrown at us, all of the opinion polls now show, particularly in the working class areas of Scotland, they now show that the reality for Scotland is, if everybody who is already a yes voter can convince one more voter, then on the 19th of September, we're declaring our independence, brothers and sisters. That's the reality. In this next 3 weeks, folks, we have to use whatever means of communication we have. We have to use whatever time, whatever talent we've got to try and convince those who are still undecided, who have still been affected by the scaremongering, still been affected by the distortion of this debate. As Sharon and Suzanne have both said, let's be absolutely clear about the ballot paper you're going to get on the 18th of September. Should Scotland be an independent country? Yes or no? There is no political party on the ballot paper. There's no politician on the ballot paper. This isn't a popularity contest about whether you like, love or loathe Alex Salmond, whether you support the SNP, whether you support the Labour Party. This is not about party politics. This is not about politicians. This is about your wains and your grand wains. This is about the future of Scotland. That's what this decision's about. You're not voting on the 18th of September for a political manifesto or a political programme. You're voting on the 18th of September for the right to determine who runs your country in 2016. That's what you're voting for. We have got freedom within our grasp here. Freedom within a grasp. People say, oh, come on, Tommy, is it really about freedom? Yes, it's about freedom. I'll tell you why it's about freedom. Since 1951, this wee country, Scotland, has rejected the political creed of greed. This wee country, Scotland, has rejected the political manifesto that dictates the way to motivate the working class is you pay them less and you get them to work longer. But the way to motivate the ruling class is you cut their taxes and give them bigger bonuses. We have rejected the political manifesto that determines the essential public services are for sale to the city spivs in London to make them even richer than they already are. We have rejected all of those ideas since 1951, because since 1951 Scotland has refused to vote for a Tory government. That's the reality. That's the reality. And yet since 1951 we've had to endure 35 years of Tory governments that we never voted for. People like Thatcher, who, because we refused to vote for her, decided she was going to punish us, decided she was going to ruin our steel industry, our shipbuilding, our mines, decided that she was going to bring to communities like the Cumnocks of the world, like the Killocks of the world, going to bring to communities that before Thatcher knew nothing but full employment, hope and aspiration. Did they know what heroin was? They know what it is now. They know what social division is now. They know what poverty and low pay is now. They know what damp housing is now. They know what illegal drugs and heroin is now. Because that bastard tried to ruin Scotland with their policies. She tried to ruin it. She tried to destroy us. She tried to punish us for having the temerity to refuse to support her political creed of greed. Brothers and sisters, here's one good reason. If you're still struggling with your mates or your family or your workmates, still struggling to convince them to vote yes, surely one good reason is for you to say to them, look at Thatcher, look at Major, look at Cameron and what he's doing to this country, destroying the welfare state, destroying public services, introducing tax cuts for millionaires and bedroom tax for the poor. These animals, these political cretins, you've got it within your grasp to say to your wains and your grandwains, listen, on the 18th of September, I'm going to use my vote so that you will never, ever experience a Tory government, because there'll never be one in Scotland. There'll never be one in Scotland. We've got the freedom in our hands here. The freedom in our hands to expel Tory governments from Scotland forever. Yes, there'll still be Tories, of course there will be. But they'll maintain their minority status that they've got to do. For Christ's sake, we've got more pandas in Edinburgh Zoo than we've got elected Tory MPs. That's the status that they will remain in an independent Scotland. We've got the chance here. Listen to what Suzanne said about us being rich enough. We hear it all the time. Oh, come on, Tommy. Is Scotland big enough to stand on its own 2 feet? Can we afford the welfare state? Can we afford pensions? Can we afford to invest in health and education? Brothers and sisters, please remember this. I don't want to give you loads of stats. We'll come on to that if you want. Please remember this, but every single year for the last 33 years, 33 consecutive years in a row, Scotland has paid more money into the Westminster pot than we've got back from the Westminster pot. That's an economic reality. Some of you will be in here tonight. Some of you will be having a wee kitty here tonight, you know. How many of you are going to be happy if somebody's putting a fiver in and expecting to get 15 quid worth of booze? You're not going to be happy. Hey, that's what you call an abusive relationship. That's the relationship we've been in for the last 300 years. We have been getting our resources and our tax revenue taken off us, and then we've been getting less back in return. Businesses for Scotland. Now it's 2,500 small businesses who are supporting independence. Why? Because they think it's going to be worse for them? No, because they know that it will create conditions with more people employed, with more people getting better wages, with better public services. Small businesses know that they've got a better chance of growing their businesses. They've done the research. They've done the research in the last 5 years alone. The last 5 years. I'm going to insult some people here. Apologise. Apologise to anybody here with ginger hair. I apologise. There's one here. I'm going to apologise. I'm going to apologise right from the outset.
Here one.
The reason I'm apologising is because if you want to know what the future holds under a no vote, look what happened when the ginger rodent, Danny Alexander, got caught a couple of weeks ago with a secret dossier on his lap, gone into the cabinet meeting that revealed that the cuts that have already been announced by these condemned governments are going to bring in more job losses in the next 12 months. Job losses totalling 490,000. 490,000. 60,000 in Scotland alone. 60,000 jobs to go in Scotland. The dossier then goes on to reveal that they hope that the private sector will take up the slack, because what they're going to do is they're going to introduce pay restraint for remaining workers and less hours. Reduced hours. So not just are they going to slash 60,000 public service jobs for local government, for the health service, for the education service in Scotland, they're also going to reduce pay by keeping pay frozen so that inflation goes up, your wages don't. That's called a wage cut. And they're going to reduce hours. That's the future under a no vote. You've got the opportunity. You've got the opportunity to stop those austerity cuts. Why? Because there's not a politician in Scotland who, after the 19th of September, when you vote yes for independence, there's not a single politician in Scotland that's going to implement austerity measures when there's an election in 2016. Not a single politician. You have it within your grasp to stop austerity in its tracks, to save 60,000 jobs, to stop public sector workers having another cut in their living standards, dragging down the wages across the whole of the Scottish economy. You have the opportunity to do that, brothers and sisters. I've got to say to you, why, oh why would we not seize this opportunity? We have that report for Businesses for Scotland. Last 5 years alone, last 5 years, we would have had extra to spend in Scotland, £8.3 billion extra, £8,300 million extra to spend in public services. See, in an independent Scotland, we wouldn't be debating and discussing where to cut. In an independent Scotland, we'll be debating and discussing where to invest first. That's what we'll be doing in an independent Scotland. That's the chance that you've got.